Hey, what's up guys? Rob here, and I'm the Sci-Fi Horror Guy. Thank you very much for tuning in today, and welcome back to another Slashback Saturday challenge created by Joe the Horror Man. Now really quick, if you don't know what the Slashback Saturday challenge is, that's your own problem. I can't help you. It is basically a weekly theme created by Joe, and you have to take a slasher film that relates to that theme and review it. Pretty awesome. This week's theme is city slashers, slasher films that take place in a city. Now we did mention that it doesn't have to take place in a city throughout the whole film, but it has to pertain to the story. So there was one film that just popped in my head right away. And it's funny because for my last, Slashback challenge, I reviewed another film in this series. Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. A movie that is criminally underrated. This movie gets shit on. It's considered the worst in the series. It's considered the weakest movie in the series. And I don't get it. I like the characters. I love the kills. I love the music. The story's fine. I don't like the ending. But let's face it. Let's put all the cards out on the table. Every single Friday the 13th movie has problems. Whether it's a plot hole in the story, or there's no consistency, or characters. It's just there's always something with each of these films, but I think that adds to the charm. It adds to the charm of the series. That's why I love the series. The series is not perfect, and neither is this movie, but it's fun. It's cheesy fun. That's why I like these movies. I like every single Friday the 13th movie. But this one being the weakest? Hell no. I would actually put Jason X to be one of the weakest, because even though I like Jason X, I love Jason X actually. But I would prefer to watch this over that movie. Just saying. Anyway, yeah, I love the kills, the characters, everything about this film. Yeah, I don't like the ending, like I said, but that's not gonna. I'm not gonna say, well, the whole film sucks now because I don't like the ending. Anyway, 1989 American slasher film, written and directed by Rob Hedden, who did the story for this movie, The Condemned with Steve Austin, Stone Cold Steve Austin, kind of an underrated action flick. But he did, let's see, he did the screenplay, and the story to that. But this was his first feature film right here. They took a risk with this movie. Okay, it's not your typical Camp Crystal Lake movie, even though they do have a little part of that in the beginning. But, they have like, basically, well, this film was actually shot in like 7 locations, okay? And for what they did, I thought it worked. And like I said, they took a risk. They put Jason out of his element, okay? Put him on a boat and then put him in a city. It's just something different. Different is not always good, but I think in this case, it was refreshing to see. But at the time, this was the most expensive film out of the franchise at the time. A little over $5 million for the budget. And it made like 14.3 at the box office, US. And it was considered the poorest performing film of the franchise. But I like it. I don't know. There are some of the most memorable kills here in this movie out of the entire series. You can say that probably for most of the movies, but stars Jensen Daggett as Rennie, who I remember being in this show, Home Improvement with Tim Allen. And she played Nancy. Tim's brother was married to Nancy, who was Jensen Daggett, and that's what I remember her from, Home Improvement. But yeah, she's the main actress here. And then you got Scott Reeves, who plays Sean, and he did a lot of 90s TV shows. You got Kelly Hu as Eva, in her film debut. Kelly Hu, she's she went on to do like You know, she was in the second X-Men movie. She was in other stuff. You got Kane Hodder as Jason, you know, reprising his role from Seven. You got Peter Mark Richmond as Charles, who is the professor in this. He was in Naked Gun 2.5. He was the voice of Peter Parker in Spider-Man in the 1996 cartoon, the animated series. He voiced old Peter Parker in Spider-Man. So anyway, you know, I'd say decent cast. I like the cast and the characters. But the story is, you got the SS Lazarus, which is this big boat that's going to be setting sail for New York City with a graduating senior class from Lakeview High School. And what's interesting about it, you know, all these kids are aboard this ship, and Jason all of a sudden shows up. Now, what's weird about the situation is this means that Crystal Lake must be located near an ocean. Because in the beginning, Jason takes out this couple in this boat, you know, in the middle of the lake. And then, you know, Jason gets his new mask. In this movie, he gets a new mask. Because you remember in 7, his mask was ripped apart. I mean, it was falling apart anyway, but it was ripped apart. And so, you know, at the end of 7, he didn't have no mask after he was at the bottom of the lake. And this one, it's almost like he gets resurrected again, because his overalls are not as, I want to say, torn as they were in part 7, where you could see his spinal cord and stuff. It's almost like, yeah, like a Frankenstein situation, like he was resurrected. But he has a new mask in this, and Kane Hodder, I mean, he just makes him look he makes Jason look menacing in this movie. I really like the way he looks. But yeah, he kills this couple. Then he ends up on this boat with this graduating class. Just all of a sudden, he gets on the boat, and the boat is setting sail for New York. And that's when all hell breaks loose on the boat. He starts to kill these kids one by one, different ways. And you get to learn of these characters. You know, there's this slut that's on board. There's this geeky camera guy, I think Wayne, I think, who is in love with this slutty girl, but you know, he doesn't know how to tell her that. There's this professor that's you know, making sure everyone's doing things right, and then there's Rennie, of course, who has had a really bad past. Had a fear of drowning because something happened to her, you know, when she was younger. So, you know, the whole movie doesn't really take place in a city. It basically takes place on a ship, and I'm fine with that. You know, the third act is when they get to the city, and then there are some pretty cool kills and stuff that happen, but that's when it's all in the city. It's really quick. The interesting about this, though, is that this wasn't even the original story. The director from part 7, you know, after the disappointing box office gross, he wanted to do a follow-up of part 7 where Tina was actually going to go toe-to-toe with Jason again. Yeah, Tina Shepard, actually, after she was released from the insane asylum. That's where she was going to be in part 8, and she was going to be working with girls who were going with, she was going to be working with girls and boys that were going through, like, trauma and stuff like that, and that was going to be the story. And she was actually going to go face-to-face with Jason again. Now, I don't know how that would have turned out. Again, it sounds interesting, but I'm kind of glad we got something refreshing like this. Like I said, not to say that wouldn't have worked. You know, it probably would have. But anyway, Jensen Daggett beat out Elizabeth Berkley from Saved by the Bell. Jessie. Played Jessie. And, you know, Showgirls. She's also in Showgirls. Elizabeth Berkley. I wonder how that would have been with her, you know, Jason grabbing her by the throat, Elizabeth Berkley. I'm so excited. I'm so scared. I'm a huge Saved by the Bell fan, sorry. And also, she beat out Pamela Anderson. Now, what's interesting about that is that both Jensen Daggett and Pamela Anderson were in this show. Pamela Anderson played Heidi in this show. The very first, you know, she was in the first season. I think she was. There was another girl who played Heidi after that, because Pamela wasn't on there anymore. But it's funny that both of them ladies were on this show with Tim Allen. But yeah, she beat out Pamela Anderson for the lead role. Scott Reeves, who plays Sean, was actually cast at the last minute. Like, they went with him the last friggin' minute. Like I said, it was shot in 7 locations. All the alley scenes that you see in the city were shot in LA. The Times Square scenes were actually in Times Square. There was actually an audience, like Jason fans on the outskirts. You know, they set that whole thing up. Just a couple shots in Times Square. And I believe, I'm not sure if the subway, I'm not even sure. There were locations in New York, but Jason made an appearance on Arsenio Hall, the show. And it's pretty funny because Arsenio's trying to ask him questions, and of course he's not talking. He's in character like the whole time, promoting this movie, Friday the 13th Part 8, which was actually pretty cool. But yeah, all the Times Square stuff was cool. This movie has a really cool opening. I love that song by Metropolis called "Darkest Side of the Night," which I just love that song. It's a great opening. They use that song. I always used to have that song playing in my car. You know, I made a CD with all my favorite soundtrack songs, and that was actually on it, and I'd put that in my car and listen to it. But yeah, like, you know, the poorest performing movie of the series at the time, and the most expensive at the time, but yet, you know, the numbers just didn't add up. It's like people were just pissed about it. I mean, oh, let's take Jason out of Camp Crystal Lake. You know, that a lot of people were getting tired of that. At that time, I mean, this is the 8th film. You gotta think, this is the last of the Paramount ones, too. Before Jason Goes to Hell, that was next. But, you know, people were getting sick of it. And I don't get it, you know. I just think it's refreshing, like I said. It's something new. New doesn't always mean good, but I'm just glad they took the risk. I'm glad they went this way. I think the ending should have been better. I didn't care for the ending, but that's not going to make me hate the film at all. You know, there's some really, really cool scenes, like the professor, like when Jason puts him upside down into that sludge in the barrel, and he's sitting there holding him, like he tackles this cop. You know, the fight between him and Julius, where he, you know, Julius is sitting there, he's a boxer, and he's hitting Jason. He hits him like, oh my god, like 25 times. He just bam, 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 and then Jason, after he's tired, he's like, give it your best shot, and Jason's like, bam, just knocks off his head in one punch. Awesome. I mean, awesome. Then there's the Times Square scene where it's like, you're dead meat, scumbag, and then you know, Jason shows him, you know, he lifts up the mask, shows him face, and then they start running. Yo, it's cool, man, it's cool. Yeah, I mean, I think the comedy works in this movie, and I love the kills. Like I said, some of the most memorable kills. The music's great. I even love, what's her name, JJ in this movie, the rocker, the guitarist. She has some really cool riffing tunes in this, where she's playing in, like, the lower deck of the ship, where there's like echo and stuff, and Jason kills her with their own guitar, which was pretty awesome. But I love the music. The music's fantastic in this. But I have to give credit to Kane Hodder, man. He really did it in this movie. He really did it. I loved it. But everyone did a great job. I just think it was just a lot of fun. So anyway, that's my pick for this week's Slashback Saturday Challenge, City Slashers, and that is Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. So let me know in the comments what you think of this movie. Do you think it's underrated? Do you love it, or do you actually hate it? I'd be interested to hear what some of you say, because I know I can't be the only one who thinks that this movie is underrated, or can't be the only one who actually really likes this movie. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. I just want to give a huge shout out to Joe the Horror Man. If you haven't done the Slashback Saturday Challenge, please do so, participate, and thanks for watching. And I'll see you guys next Saturday for the next